And welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am your host, Tim Capper, along with Cliffy D. Hey, Cliff, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing good. It's a nice summery evening and ready to talk some damn football.
It would be nice if it could be because I know it's a very different year, obviously, with COVID and all the protocols that are happening for training camp. So it's not only is it a different type of year for football, but it's also a very different type of training camp. And while the Alouettes and based on the Quebec protocols have the CFL protocols, it seems that very few fans, even though they are being told how to watch camp, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
It's not the norm because usually you yourself would be spending, either a week or at least the weekends or whatever, sitting in the stands and watching training camp, because obviously with us doing this and your alternative blog, we really haven't had much to go on except what we're told in the press releases and the stories that are put up by the Owls and what we're hearing from others on social media.
Yeah, I mean, information unfortunately is just trickling out of camp. Like it's not flooding out. I mean, and yeah, I have to admit it's been kind of it's been different. That's for sure. I mean, like, yeah, you're right. Like normally camp weekends, you would pretty much find me there front and center, basically. Mm-hmm. And that just hasn't happened because spectators were not allowed at training camp this year because training camp isn't being held at Percival Molson Stadium. It's being held at Olympic Stadium, the field in between the Olympic Stadium and Stade Saputo, unless there were, except for the days when they're inside Olympic Stadium. And all of that's closed off essentially to the fans, except for there is like one small sort of area you can stand in and kind of peek in at camp. But even that's like very limited as well. So it's made for it's been very difficult, let's put it that way, to really get that same vibe that we've had in years past. And again, I understand that this is a very different year because of the circumstances that we're facing with COVID-19 and that, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating to witness and be a part of. So I'm really hoping it's just for this year because it's tough. It makes it really, really tough to get excited truly about football this year. I
agree. And with no preseason games and not being allowed to go on the field after the games this year, and it's going to be really, really weird. But we'll continue here, and before we continue, Cliff, want to at least mention some stuff that we've already announced it on social media, but we want to mention to you, our listeners who may have not seen it on social. We've announced, and we're lucky to have been able to partner with, the name references a Montreal icon, in my opinion. I don't know what you think about that, but starting in the month of August, we have partnered with Sport Buff. As I said, if you knew the Alexis Neon Mall, and you're hanging around there in the Forum back in the late 90s, early 2000s, if I remember correctly, then you'll remember Chris and Gary over at Sport Buff. It's like what basically everything's become online now. It was a sports store that sold sports merchandise, and I remember hanging out there way too much. So we're happy to have partnered with them. They will be our presenting sponsor for the podcast at least into August, and we're hoping that we have able to extend our partnership beyond that. But stay tuned because they have given us a few Alouettes merchandise that we will be giving away. It's the stuff that they have on their site. It's nothing that I have seen anywhere. It's not on the Alouettes boutique site at all. But I'm just proud that we've been able to partner with them. And as I said, I hope it goes from there.
Absolutely. It's always very exciting to be able to work with companies that want to see us grow and flourish. And if we can help others grow and flourish as well, of course, so much the better. To me, I'm excited to see where this partnership can go. Like I said, the merchandise, if you haven't seen it yet on their website, wow, they've got some great stuff, especially Alouette stuff, folks. So, I mean, we're always going to say, encourage the Alouettes boutique 100%, but you know what? Don't be afraid to check out other sources as well. And tell you what, Sports Buff definitely has some really cool stuff, really cool Alouette stuff. So by all means, check them out. Once again, really excited to be able to partner up with them for the month of August, and really hope that you fans too will get a chance to appreciate it as well, because the merch that we'll be giving away as well looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to head over there now, by all means, go ahead. Head over to sportbuffshop.com. Even though we're early, we felt that they deserve a little bit of a plug ski. So
yeah, give them some props. Let's do that.
Yeah, and also just for my sake, if anybody saw it on social too, at least want to give a thanks, because it's something that Cliff and I have been having worked on for a little while. No sponsor. This is just a thanks to Canadian Custom Apparel. They're out of Toronto. And I was able to work with them and get us some sweet official flight deck polos, soon to be seen in stadium. But thanks to the guys there, and they did an amazing job, and I'll be proud to wear them. So.
Yeah, and if somehow we can use those and get ourselves into a media scrum or two, if that ever becomes a thing again, with unfortunately all the media scrums nowadays seem to be all based on Zoom. But if we ever get a chance to be live in front of a camera again, you better believe we'll be there representing as much as possible with those beautiful polo shirts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know we reached out to the team because initially you and I wanted to be able to go into stadium and see practice whenever we could, because as I said, it's quite different, because usually you were there. I think it was usually you yourself, you're there for a week in between Victoria Day and I think the week after Victoria Day, if I remember correctly. That's what usually your yearly thing is, if I remember correctly. And obviously it being later on this year, and with all the pandemic stuff and all the protocols in place, we were still trying to be able to see if we could get in there. But after reaching out to the team, Cliff, and from what the information that you were given, they gave a little bit more of an explanation on why specifically fans are not allowed to watch the team this year from the stands over at the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with, especially when you compare it to other teams, because the first thing you're going to say is, well, Saskatchewan had fans in their stands over the weekend, and they're going to be doing a scrimmage game. Hamilton apparently is going to be doing a scrimmage game as well, and allowing fans in the stands as well. This is true. They are doing that. However, and the clarity I got regarding this issue is because of the fact that they're having these teams are having training camp in their actual stadium, whereas the Alouettes are not. The Alouettes, the practice field that they're on right now is currently at a field level. They're not. It's not a separate part. Like, there's no actual grandstands or anything like that to be a part of that's open to the public so that they can actually sit and watch, versus like going to, say, TD Place or Mosaic Stadium and sitting far, far away, but still in the stands and still being able to see everything. Mm-hmm. So there is that. That's how it was explained to me as far as the differences goes. And again, it's all part of the CFL's safety protocols, which, again, it's I guess kind of left open to interpretation. I don't know if that means if practice was actually being held at Percival Molson Stadium, as it was the past couple of years, if that would have changed anything. It's really hard to say. I think also, like, there's so many logistics involved to it, so I understand to a degree why fans they're not unwelcome, but the little location where they're able to sit and watch practice from, unfortunately, just doesn't lend to being able to see everything. So that's why you're not going to get the whole experience, as opposed to, say, if you were sitting at Mosaic Stadium or Tim Hortons Field, or I think it's even TD Place too in Ottawa, are also supposed to be allowing fans in the stands as well this weekend. So it's tough. It's definitely not the ideal circumstances. And once again, I really truly hope it's just for this year that this is happening, because as far as I'm concerned, even if we couldn't go and meet the players afterwards, or you can't congregate in groups of 10 plus or something, whatever the rules would be. I mean, if you were to at least give the fans a chance to attend, even if you had to be spaced out entirely like that, I want to believe that there's enough interest that people would go and want to participate in it. But that just seems to be the situation right now. It's tough. There's just no other way to describe it, because, as I've said, it makes it very difficult to not be able to see things as they happen. Like, yes, you do get the reports every day from training camp from the team, but it doesn't quite cover everything. And also, too, like, what I'd be looking for may not necessarily be what the guy next to me is seeing as well, or the media guys from the Alouettes will mark down certain instances and certain things that have happened, but we could have missed something else entirely. I mean, there's a whole lot of things, and I know you do the best you can with what you got. That's pretty much how you have to do things nowadays. But again, it just comes down to, I understand the frustration for a lot of fans when they see other teams seemingly being allowed to do the things that we can't seem to be able to do as Alouettes fans and supporters. But once again, I just hope it's only for this year, and come next year, everything will be, I guess, as close to back to normal as possible. But it definitely does make for a very challenging situation for everybody involved.
Now, you actually brought up a very good question. I mean, first and foremost, I wouldn't care if I was sitting out there even just for a little bit. I understand, as you said, it's not the best location, because I do remember seeing it when we were there a couple of years back. But you bring up a good point about fans being allowed in stands to watch scrimmages, and hell, it looks like even some of them are charging for it, or giving away tickets. I don't know what they're doing. I think Saskatchewan's charging $5 to get into the stadium. I don't know what they're doing in Hamilton, but supposedly all those tickets are gone. But
yeah, I think the way, especially too in Ontario, where, like, as I said, Hamilton and Ottawa are having these practices with tickets. I think the ticket part is just a legal thing for crowd control purposes. And okay. I don't know if they're charging for it or not. And I think if there is any charge, it's going to charity. At least I would hope it would be going to charity. Because,
I would hope so, yeah.
To me, that would be a good thing to do. I mean, if you have to charge for something like this, I mean, I truly here in Montreal, I don't think it would ever truly fly. But if you paint it as far as a charity goes, then it kind of makes it a little bit easier. But
yeah.
If anything, it would be a good way to gauge actual fan interest in something like that, because there are times too where I'm sure the team has wondered, like, do people even really care? And as I said, yes, people do care. Maybe not. You're not going to get thousands of people wanting to go see practice, or a training camp session, but there definitely is interest. So I mean, if you've got people that are interested in seeing training camp sessions, by all means, let them. I don't see what harm can come of it. I never have, and I never will. And as far as these scrimmages, I mean, to me, that's with there being no preseason games, like, this is truly the best way to see as close to actual CFL action as possible until the season gets underway. So to me, it would behoove every team to allow their fans to go to their actual home stadium and watch these scrimmages, especially too if you're trying to replicate as much of the CFL game experience as possible, like, say, playing under the lights, having referees there, so on and so forth. To me, I would want to have, even if it's just like 100 fans show up, or 1,000 fans show up and watch these scrimmages. To me, if I'm the team, I would want that. I would want that just to gauge just how much actual true interest there is.
I agree, and that's why, because when the original schedule came out for the preseason, for training camp, 2 scrimmages were announced, and one coming up this week on the 24th, and it was initially listed as being at Percival Molson under the lights. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand. It plays into exactly what the response was from Charles over in the media department. They're going to be in stadium. They can control crowds. You could charge $5 that would go towards the Alouettes Foundation. I just don't get it. With the allotted numbers for the Canadians indoors at 3,500, And with these new things that are coming out recently, I mean, these are farther down the line that I think are close to the Alouette season with the test concerts indoors and out for Quebec. I think one's 5,000 inside and the other one's going to be 20, I think, up in Quebec City, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
As tests, they're tests, and they're being paid for by the government to see how it works. I guess with they look at vaccinations and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I just don't understand why the Alouettes are unable or unwilling to open up the stadium to the fans to watch, especially if it is going to be at 7:30, potentially under the lights. Why the team won't? Is it because they have to pay for security? Maybe they don't want to pay for security. That's possible. I mean, it's not going to be any. The last time, Cliff, that I remember, besides them holding training camp, there was hardly anybody at training camp. And wait a minute, what am I thinking about? Besides the last couple of years, and then when Jim Pop had a scrimmage at Percival Molson, they didn't have any security. They didn't need to have security. So I just don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand what the team is thinking. I don't. And I'm sure it's a question that we should have asked, considering that all these other teams are doing this. Even as open as they are in Alberta and Saskatchewan. They're still trying to be careful. They're capping it in Hamilton.
Right. And again, I think that's really what it comes down to is every province has different regulations of what's considered acceptable and not acceptable. And maybe the Alouettes are just erring on the side of caution, which I can understand. I can get that to a degree. And like I say, it doesn't make it any less frustrating or concerning. I'll use as a term to explain why the fans can't go to Percival Molson and watch the team participate in a scrimmage. But
yeah,
like I said, I mean, I wish we had better answers, but maybe we just didn't ask the right questions. It's hard to say. I mean, all we could do is just hope and pray that this truly is a one-time thing, and hopefully in May 2022 we'll be back to normal. We'll be back to being able to sit in the stands, regardless of where training camp's going to be held, be able to sit in stands and see the action live and talk to players afterwards and so on and so forth. I really hope it gets back to that sooner rather than later. And again, much like the fact that the Alouettes lost their Thanksgiving game in 2019, I'm hoping that's just like that was just a blip on the radar. I'm really hoping that this year is a similar circumstance to that.
I'll take a Grey Cup championship in a blip.
Yeah, you know what? I would too.
I'm just reading things here. I mean, the game, the opening game in Saskatchewan, they're not asking if you're vaccinated. It looks like they're not allowing for masks. And a microbiologist said that if you're unsure, don't go. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. And I think in Quebec it may be slightly different, where I think masks. Okay, here's a question, and I know we're transitioning, but it's sort of the same thing here, Cliff. A home opener comes about,
mm-hmm.
and let's say the Quebec government has dropped the mask mandate. I don't think they will, by the way, but it seems to be that Quebec seems to be slightly different than a lot of other provinces, based on the reopening in the other Western provinces. Mm-hmm. Would you still wear a mask? If the mask mandate has been dropped?
I probably would.
Yeah.
It's just one of those because again, even if you're fully vaccinated, which I believe we now are, you and I.
Yes.
I
can tell you the three people in our row, the first three people that are you and I are back to back to back. Now that you are, hey, you're now a seat mate, by the way, which we're going to talk about in a couple seconds here.
Yeah.
We're all vaccinated.
Yeah.
So.
But again, even if you're fully vaccinated, you still can get COVID.
Yes.
So
even at that 5 to 10%, whatever it is you've taken, depending on what you've taken, I'm just basing it off of what the stats for Pfizer. But anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's still a possibility, but, and again, wearing a mask too isn't 100% either, but you figure if you're fully vaccinated and you're wearing a mask, you have a much better chance of not getting anything as opposed to getting it. So, I mean, like, you know what, for what it's worth, like, I would look at that, just look at that, and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't bother me. Like, if you told me I had to wear a mask, fine. Telling me I don't have to wear a mask, you know what? I may still do so just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, it's really not that much of an inconvenience. I mean,
No,
really,
it's not.
truly.
No, it is not. And I think it just goes to show with Quebec, they seem, as I said before, seem to be they're being a little bit more careful. I would expect masks, and I would expect because if they're only talking a 5,000 inside and a test 5,000 inside and 20,000 outside, and this is, I think, is in August, as I said.
Yeah.
We're still going to be, I think we're going to be at maximum, will be 5,000 people in the stadium, which I'm fine with it. I'm fine with.
Yep.
Well, but anyway,
no, and if you, and again, like, I understand the Alouettes are now wanting to promote, like, now they're starting looking towards selling like single game seats.
Yeah. Who has so far in the CFL?
Well, they all have, but
us.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen it for Toronto. I've seen it for, obviously I've seen it for Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. I had not seen single game seats for Edmonton, but mind you, they're trying to get 35,000 plus.
Well, and that's how you get 35,000 plus.
I don't know.
I don't think they have 35,000 season ticket holders.
I don't know what they've done for Calgary, and I don't know what they're doing for BC. But no, BC said they're capping it at 12,500.
Okay, so that's believable.
But
also too, they play indoors as well. Technically
they do. They're more indoors than any of us are.
Yeah,
and I don't know. And I think at the last time I heard, I think Ottawa was only going 12.
Well, also too, Ottawa could go up to 15 with the current regulations.
Yeah.
But don't forget too, Ottawa also has only the south side stands open.
What do you mean?
So that, like, the south side stadium stands. For what I think the north side's being undergoing some heavy renovations, if I'm understanding correctly.
No, I know what you're talking about. And that's based off of a report saying that those stands are end of life. But I don't think anything's been done. It wouldn't be done now. So it'll still be on both sides.
I guess we'll see. I know that, like, as I said, that they are having a scrimmage with fans being able to attend, and everybody's going to be sitting on the south side.
That I can understand, because they can control. That's right. Control. But I think for the opener, I think through the stadium, in order to have 12,500 and to be able to space it out, or whatever it is, it'll be both sides. Because remember, that place holds 25.
Yes, it does.
So, anyways, any more information that comes across, I would hope that the Alouettes would open up the scrimmage and open up the gates, even if it's just a single gate where you have to go in through the entrance at Pine and, help me here, Cliff.
And De La Montagne.
Thank you. No.
Or not De La Montagne.
That the main entrance. Park. What do they consider the main? Yeah, park. Thank you. At that one entrance. Hey, maybe the government can do the test on the vaccine passports. I don't know.
Yeah, why not?
It would be nice to be able to go into the stadium, but I said, well, stay tuned to our social media for more information as it becomes available.
And you know what? It wouldn't be the first time, Tim, that we've had, we talk about something on the show, and then lo and behold, the exact opposite happens the day after. So
yeah,
here's how. Maybe this is one of those things we have to sort of speak it into existence. Like, oh, they'll never do that. Lo and behold, they're doing it.
Yeah, and maybe they're thinking, I don't know, with the amount of people that maybe they won't be. Anyways, well, stay tuned. Stay tuned to social media.
That's all you can do. Is just stay tuned.
Yeah. Before I get to the rosters, talking about the rosters and stuff like that, and our thoughts about the current players that have been released and who have been placed on injured reserve, or is it the injured list? What's the difference between that? Because is it Major League Baseball now in the injured list, not the injured reserve?
Well, it used to be disabled list.
Yeah,
I guess maybe that's considered too edgy a term. So maybe that's.
Oh, I don't know. I never even thought about that. All of a sudden, I remember saying, it's like, okay, it's not the injured list. But yeah, before we get to that, as I hinted at before, there's going to be something different about this Cliffy D Pine this year. He's not going to be bound. No siree. He's not going to be bound by that 3, 5, 6 game flex package, is he?
No, sir. No, it's now officially official that you and I are going to be bunkmates or seatmates, however you want to phrase it. But because now I am 100% officially a season ticket holder.
Mm.
Before, due to circumstances, I couldn't quite make the full commitment to season. Even though I ended up at every game, I still couldn't quite to make the commitment for any number of reasons. And now this, with circumstances being what they are, when I was basically told that if you want to be guaranteed to be able to get into the stadium to see the games, you're pretty much going to have to be a season ticket holder. It's like, well, you know what? It's just, to me, it's not worth trying to scramble or dealing with any of the other nonsense that sort of comes with trying to secure your tickets and everything like that. I said, you know what? Let's just go ahead and let's make that commitment and make it happen, because I will not, under any circumstances, miss any football this year. That there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Explain for those of those fans who may be on the fence. I don't know if you were given any, news from Benjamin, who is our ticket guy, by the way. When it came to the difference, is there a difference between being a season ticket holder versus being a flex pack holder?
Well, a flex pack is just that. It definitely gives you the flexibility to choose which games you'd be able to attend and not attend. As I said, for myself, I'd be at the games no matter what. But
yeah, but I'm saying, did he give a difference? I said, for anybody who's on the fence, who's saying, I don't know if I want to be a flex pack holder because I can't buy single game seats right now, or and do I want to become a season ticket holder? Not necessarily where you're located, because there are different prices around the stadium. But were you given any? I'm just asking because you and I haven't talked about this yet. Were you given any pros and cons? Obviously, we know what the pros are to being a season ticket holder. Were there any pros or cons given for being a flex pack holder versus a season ticket holder?
Well, the biggest con would be the fact that as at the time, it's since recently changed, but there wasn't actually going to be any flex packs being done this year because of just with the schedule of going down to 7 home games, with any of the way things were done traditionally it just wasn't going to happen this year.
Right.
That was the initial report that I was given as far as whether or not do I make the commitment or do I just keep going the flex pack route, which has always worked for me. But this year, with circumstances being what they are and with no guarantees other than to season ticket holders, that's kind of what made the decision a lot easier for me, because as I said, I do not want to miss any football games, and pretty much being guaranteed that as a season ticket holder, you will be allowed in the stadium. That to me was sort of that was sort of the icing on the cake, like just that guarantee, knowing that I'd be there. To me, that's what the important part, because as I said, I do not want to miss any live football games.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And obviously,
I don't have to tell you, especially of like the benefits of being a season ticket holder, but I mean, like, especially for other fans who are wondering whether or not they should make the commitment or not. And my understanding is there's still quite a bit of space available if you want to do that. And of course, as the government regulations change and more and more fans are going to be allowed inside the stadium and all that. I mean, yes, eventually single game seats will go on sale. Not everybody can make that commitment, unfortunately, and I understand. But I think if you really truly care about your football team and really want them to succeed, truly the best way to show your support and to show how committed you are to the team is to go ahead and take that plunge and become a season ticket holder.
Right.
So to me, like, that's really what it came down to, is in order for us to be able to provide you listeners with the best possible experience, we got to be at the games. And I've made it clear in the past, like, I will not miss Alouettes football games under any circumstances.
Yeah.
So to me, that was when you pretty much tell me, like, okay, the best way to do it and to guarantee that you'll be able to do it is to go ahead and make that commitment, then I'll make that commitment. I mean, to me, it just made the most logical sense. And when I found out that you and I can actually sit together, like as far as I'm concerned, as we should be.
That's a flukage, man. That's total flukage.
Well, hey, listen, sometimes the stars align, man, and that's the way it worked. And believe me, I wasn't going to say no.
Were you looking anywhere else at first, or was that total? Because obviously, with Benjamin being my season ticket guy, had you looked at any place else? I mean, had you been willing to spend more? Had you been? I know you're willing to spend less to get season tickets, but was that our row the first option that was given to you?
Well, it was the most logical choice. I mean, like I've been in that section too for a couple of years, and like I've sat in different rows and all that. So at least I know that section pretty well. So to me, like I'm happy enough with it. Just the fact that you're there just makes it even easier.
Yeah.
It's just, like I said, it was just like I said, serendipity as far as I'm concerned. As far as being able to get the seat right next to you, so that
that's cool.
Like I said, knowing that we'll be able to watch the games together, we can compare notes and react and everything like that the way we should be, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
To me, it was a no-brainer.
Cool. Well, welcome officially, permanently to Section Y1. So
well, that's it. That's, like I said, and rain or shine, we're covered, literally. So
literally. I still miss the days of it being open. That whenever those pictures pop up every year on my Facebook account, when I went over to the stadium when it was being renovated to add the upper deck, it was like, because some of the newer fans these days may not even remember what this is what Percival Molson is to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways.
No, that's again. This is how memories are made, though, right? Like this is how you learn how to be a football fan. It's just by going to the games, and as like I said, you've been doing it now for 25 years, and I think it'd be very easy for you to sell season tickets to just about anybody. I think, but it all comes down to, like I said, just being there, and to me, that's what's the most important thing. Considering we didn't have football at all last year. There was no way, if we were to go without football again this year, I'd say I've said on numerous occasions that would essentially be the death of the CFL as we know it, and I just can't abide by that.
Yeah,
I mean, if that's what it takes to ensure that things keep on going, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, and I know that's a sacrifice you've been willing to make.
Yeah. Before we head off and talk about the rosters and what we've seen in training camp, what we've heard in training camp rather. Just want to remind everybody that the best place to go if you want to hear the archives for all the Alouettes Flight Deck podcasts, you can head over to alouettesflightdeck.ca, or you can check most, if not any, of the podcast aggregates that are out there. But as I said, different places. I mean, iHeart's one of the bigger ones that we're on. I think TuneIn, we're on that one. Also, don't forget that we've recently launched our YouTube page where we will have some the shows themselves in full, and also some interviews from previous episodes going back the full length of the 6 years as little snippets. So don't forget those. Also, don't forget to check out our Instagram account. That's at Alouettes Flightdeck. Also, obviously, Twitter and Facebook. So we're talking about the rosters, and something that we had talked about on not last episode, not the John Bowman episode, which, by the way, if you haven't listened to, it's well worth the hour and a half. Was the episode prior when we talked about Quan Bray and the issue that he was having getting into Canada. Well, lo and behold,
he's in.
He's in as of the 13th. He was able to report to the team, and it seemed, did what he needed to do with his quarantine, and he's been out on the field, and from what we've seen and what we've heard.
Yeah.
Is that he's doing quite well. He seems to be making the most of his second chance. But from what you have read, Cliff, and what you've seen from others in social media and reading, whether it be Herb or whether it be Herb Zurkowski or the others, whether, Didier over at RDS or the others, what have you taken away so far?
Well, that's the thing. And I really hate going by other people's accounts of things because, as I said, I see things a certain way and it may not be necessarily in line with what other members of the media see. So I really dislike the idea of having to rely on other people to tell me what's going on. But again, that's the situation we're in. As I said, you make it work. So that's what we're going to try and do. The one thing that seems to be pretty clear across the board, though, is Richard Ross, who is a former XFL player, former NFL player. He has had himself a pretty spectacular camp so far, which is funny because, again, the Alouettes definitely have no shortage of wide receivers. But so in order to even get a mention, I would say nowadays is pretty impressive. So he's having himself a pretty excellent camp. Talking about receivers, and we talked about him during the last episode, or last live episode, so to speak, was Rashad Simonize. He's been in tough as far as trying to compete for that national receiver spot.
Yep.
You got Kion Julian Grant, who seems to be the front runner so far. We know what Chris Osei-Kuzi can do as well, but Simonize apparently has been holding his own very well, and I think it's going to make life very difficult as far as the fact that he's a national receiver. So, that's ratio breaking right there. He may end up getting the nod over Kion Julian Grant just because he's got the experience already. But it's very exciting to see just how competitive these receivers have been in camp so far. We know exactly what William Stanback can do. He's just been balling out. I found it very interesting that was it Cameron Artis Payne and Jeswan Antwi both are also having very phenomenal camps as well. Again, as far as the backfield goes for the Alouettes, we know what William Stanback can bring, and the big concern, especially since James Wilder Jr., who was with the Alouettes in 2020, never got to see the field as an Alouette, and now is in Edmonton. We were wondering, okay, just what was going to happen as far as the running back situation goes here in Montreal. Getting Stanback back was a huge help. At least that question got answered pretty quickly, but who's going to back him up? And with those two guys, Artis Payne and Antwi, competing for reps, I think it's going to make for a very interesting backfield for the Alouettes come 2021. So I'm really curious to see how that all plays out. To me, so far, the most interesting battle seems to have been with the kicking position.
Yeah.
And interesting in the sense that it seemed like it was Tyler Krapinia's job to lose as far as being the kicker for the Alouettes, considering he was traded for Boris Bede, or Boris Bede was traded to the Argos in exchange for Krapinia.
Right.
And then Tyler Krapinia this past Sunday ends up being released by the Alouettes.
Uh-huh.
So that tells me that the other kickers that are in camp, and that would be Felix Menard-Briere, David Cote, who was a 2021 draft pick by the Alouettes this year, and Matt Mangle, have all been having pretty outstanding camps. If they can look at an experienced guy like Krapinia and say, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. Even though you traded a fairly valuable asset in Boris Bede to get his services, it tells me these other three kickers they got to be balling out too. So again, there hasn't, aside from Krapinia being released, there hasn't really been a whole lot of kicker news as far as what the Alouettes are doing. But it sounds to me like the three kickers that I mentioned, I think it's going to be a dogfight to see who's going to end up, and will they end up going with two kickers now this year?
Just about to say that. Would they go with two kickers? Wow. When was the last time the Alouettes went with two kickers?
Gosh,
if ever. At least since the rebirth in '96.
I'm sure it's happened, but it's so rare. Gosh, it seems like to be considered a kicker for the Alouettes, you have to be able to kick and punt. I struggled to remember of a time where they had both a kicker and a punter on the roster, and even to the point of trying to make sure you had a national kicker that could do both, so that you only have you're only occupying one roster spot.
Yeah.
So that was a Jim Pop specialty among others, was making sure the kicker can do double duty so that you can have that roster spot that would normally go to a punter, let that be occupied by somebody else.
Yep.
But this year could be completely different for the Alouettes, and I'm really curious to see how it all shapes out. Like, who would they designate as the kicker? Who would they designate as the punter? Or do they decide, okay, no, you got to do both? And of the three guys that I mentioned, who ends up being the one who can do the double duty the best?
Because right now, of the kickers, it's 2 of the 3 that are nationals. Going to the roster here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bernard Briere, who is a former Carabin, and David Cote, who was a former Rouge et Or.
Okay.
Matt Mangle is American, so again, I don't know if nationality will play a factor in it. I have to believe it would be more about who can do the double duties, because I still have a very hard time believing they would actually keep 2 kickers on the roster. But like I said, this whole year has been just everything that used to be has been thrown out the window. So who knows? Maybe this is the year they decide to take a chance and go with 2 kickers, like a kicker and a punter, as opposed to someone who can do both.
Maybe. I guess we'll see.
Defensively, Patrick Levels seems to be stepping up and becoming the leader on the defense, and you'll love to see it.
Yeah.
You'll love to see it, because that guy hits like a train, and he's so football smart. Like, he sees the field everywhere, and you saw what kind of year he had in 2019. Like, he was an all-star, and he performed at such a high level. Like, he's a championship player. He was a championship player for the Calgary Stampeders. He knows what it takes to win, and he brought that attitude to Montreal, and I'm so thankful that he was able to come back, because he, I believe, signed with Hamilton in 2020 as a free agent. Once again, never saw the field as a Hamilton Tiger Cat. Ends up back in Montreal, and you see the way he's taking command of this defense. It's a thing of beauty, and I think him playing alongside with Marc-Antoine Decoy, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those guys just put the wood to people. Yeah. Like they're both very smart football players. They both see the field very well, and they both know how all facets of the defense works. I'm really curious to see just how that's going to work out in 2021. To me, the one thing that I haven't seen a whole lot of news on is the defensive line, because I know that was a big concern for the Alouettes, because they had the worst pass rush in 2019. I mean, when John Bowman, who at the time was 36 years old, when he's your best pass rusher,
right,
something's got to give. And to me, I want to see what guys like Antonio Simmons, Nick Usher, I want to see what those guys can do. Benoit Marion, who's also a draft pick in 2020, I really want to see what he can do in camp. So it's very frustrating. Like, there's a couple guys that I really want to see in action for the first time, and I'm not hearing any news on them. So I don't know if that just means they're doing their job or just doing their job and not standing out. It's really hard to say, like it's like, are they living up to the hype that I think they deserve? I don't know. And without being able to convey that to, say, a media member to do my reporting for me, makes it a little hard. So.
yeah, we're just seeing the press. There's the quick press release that the team's putting out, which gives a little bit of a synopsis. So,
and that's fine. I mean, like, that's for your average fan, that's okay. But as I said, like, I want more. I need more. I want more information. I want to be able to see things with my own eyes.
Yeah.
And this year, it's just not happening, which is, as I said, challenging.
Yep, for sure.
Like, again, we may not see these guys in action until, was it August 12th? I think is the first game against Edmonton.
Yeah, August 14th.
14th. I'm sorry. So yeah, we like I said, all we can do is just speculate, which doesn't really answer any questions. I mean, I guess like the Alouettes can announce their final cuts, and like, okay, well, I guess that's your starting safety, that's your starting defensive line, and so on and so forth. I'm like, okay, I guess they're good. I guess if the team thinks they're good, then I guess that's fine. But like, that's not really a way to gauge anything.
No, it is not. For those who hadn't been following The first cut down date was just recently on the 19th. It was the training camp down to 75 players plus non-counters cut down. I had to look up what the hell that was. And then July 30th is the training camp final cuts at 10 p.m. Eastern. So, but I'm sure we will see cuts as we saw across the, cuts are happening. Former Alouette Kenny Stafford, which was released today by the Edmonton Elks. Whoops, almost did it. Edmonton Elk.
Elks.
But out of curiosity, Cliff, besides the one major injury I thought we had two major injuries, but didn't only one of them show up on the injured list?
Well, we've got Ryan Carter, who
that was one. Who was the other one that supposedly pulled a hammy?
It wasn't pulled a hammy. It was tear the Achilles. That was Theo Redding.
Oh, okay, it was Theo Redding. Okay, but he was. Yeah. But what I don't understand is that he was released.
Well, he was probably released as a result of the injury. I mean, I'm sure he'll still get consideration, but
no. But what I'm saying to you is, in your opinion, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ryan Carter gets hurt, and he gets placed on the injured list. Theo Redding gets hurt with the same exact thing, and he gets released.
Yeah.
What's not right there?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a question of right or wrong, other than the fact that Ryan Carter has already been in the Alouette system. So, I think the team has a fairly good idea of what they can expect out of him.
Are they allowed to do that, though? And anybody who knows the CBA, please tell me. Are they able to release somebody who gets hurt? And it wasn't before. Was it before camp? It's on the cusp.
And see, that's the thing. These workouts that were scheduled. Being allowed to access the facilities before training camp actually got underway. I think that's one of those at your own risk kind of scenarios.
That sucks.
I mean, well, that's football for you.
No, I know.
But to me, I think that's really what it came down to is they kind of know what they had with Ryan Carter because he did play for the Alouettes in 2019.
Yeah.
Obviously liked him enough to bring him back for the 2021 season. And then unfortunately he has his Achilles injury. Theo Redding, I think this was his first year with the Alouettes, the first opportunity he had to actually come and participate. And it's just really unfortunate that that's essentially how his time with the Alouettes came to an end, was being injured and then now ultimately released. But that does happen quite a bit with football too, as players get injured sometimes rather than occupy a roster spot, especially too if your roster and your training camp and your practice rosters aren't set yet.
Yeah.
You sort of have to, I don't want to say trim the fat necessarily. It sounds kind of callous to say it that way, but unfortunately,
but say in this circumstance, it is.
Yeah, no, listen, it is what it is. That's the unfortunate part of it. And I think too, the players understand that as well. I don't think, how many times have we seen when a player gets released or cut or something like this happens, they'll say, it's the business. It's the business. And I think they realize that. I'm sure Theo Redding must realize that too with the circumstances that are before him. The only thing you can do at this point is just heal up, make sure everything, get yourself right, and then hopefully later on down the road, he's still a young man too. So he'll have another chance to try out for the team again. And if he's got the talent,
the problem is probably in another 12 to 14 months, most likely. That's what I keep hearing when it comes to rehabbing.
When it comes to Achilles, you're looking at close to a year of rehabilitation easily.
Yeah,
and that's the unfortunate part, especially too, the guys out in BC. There's 4 guys there that blew out their Achilles, and we won't see them for another year at least.
And
that's just the way it is.
When one recently in camp, it happened to, right? So we've had 4 that were. Was it 5 or 6? It was 6 that were right before camp, and then 1 just recently. I'm trying to remember who it was.
Yeah.
In camp. Did the exact same thing.
Yeah, and it also happened in the NFL too. Cam Akers for the Los Angeles Rams also blew out his Achilles as well. And that's a guy they had really high hopes for.
Yep.
And again, training camp hasn't even officially started yet for the NFL either.
Yeah, so, they start in a week.
Yeah. So, this was just another workout. Sometimes these
it wasn't
things
even
happen.
OTAs.
No. No, we're past that. Like I think it was like a voluntary mini camp or something like that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just these things happen. Like you could just go to the gym like you normally would every day and suffer an injury like that. Like
Right.
it's just unfortunate. Like I mean, you really have no control over some of these things.
No, I know.
And yeah, I mean that's your season right there.
Yeah. Of the other players for Montreal that have been released so far to date, because the CFL transaction page does have, as we're taping, through the 21st of July. Other than what we saw today with Eli Rogers, I mean, I don't know if I would call that a surprise. I would call it a name. If you follow NFL football, you know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I did because I'm a Steelers fan, so I knew who he was.
Right.
Any of the names surprise you?
Not really, other than Dominic Bragalone, because again, he was on the practice roster in 2019. He was also one of those players that I think had he been given the chance would have really done something. He was actually teammates with Chris Fournier, who was a 2021 draft pick, who is not going to be playing this year for the Alouettes. He's not in camp right now. Right. But I found it kind of interesting that he comes from the. I think the two of them played together briefly for Lehigh University in Pennsylvania. I figured, okay, that would be kind of an in for, the opportunity for those two to work together again might have been a possibility, but for whatever reason, Bragalone just didn't quite make the cut. Also, as I was talking about earlier with the running back position, I mean, Cameron Artis-Payne and Joshua Antwi they're definitely making their case heard to be the backup for William Stanback, and ultimately that means someone's got to go. And I guess in this case, Bragalone just unfortunately was a victim of the numbers game. Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll see what happens. Maybe let's not forget too, like players that get cut now, if they're not injured, I wouldn't be surprised if they're told to stay in Canada. Just stay ready in case something happens, in case there is an injury and they end up being invited back to camp.
Right.
I mean, that happened to, was it a couple of years ago, to Antonio Pipkin. He was in camp for the Alouettes, ended up getting hurt, ended up getting released, but was pretty much told, stay ready. And sure enough, he got the call back when there was a couple more quarterback injuries. He came in, ended up helping the Alouettes win a couple of games, and now he's backing up in Toronto.
Yep.
So you just never know, folks. I mean, you see a player get released today, you think, oh, that's the end of the line for him. Not necessarily. I mean, football is a crazy game like that. Like, you get released one day, but then the stars align and you end up back in the same camp, or someone else picks you up as well. So, I mean, if you got the talent, someone will find a spot for you. That's pretty much how I've always looked at it is, you can't hide talent. I mean, if it's not the team that you're with, someone else may decide, oh, you know what, we need a running back. We need this, that, and the other. And lo and behold, you end up signing with that team. That's sometimes just the way it works out.
I know what you mean. Camp, again, it's twice a day, usually twice a day. Today it was only one. They only did one. Today was only a one a day. One a day. Instead of 2 a day. It was only once today.
It's a multivitamin day.
Yeah. And again, supposedly the scrimmage is still scheduled for this Saturday. It'll be interesting to see which players are, as they are released until we talk to you guys again. Which players are released, which ones we may know. Because as an example, and we didn't mention this before, even though Crapina was released, he was snapped up immediately.
Again, it speaks to my point that just you have to stay ready, because Winnipeg, who I didn't realize this, but Justin Medlock, not with the team this year. I don't know if he actually took his retirement or just decided to opt out from not playing at all.
Can't remember. I swear I think that he may have retired, but I can't remember. It's
very possible, and if that's the case, then that opens things up big time for Winnipeg. As far as the kicking goes, they drafted a rookie kicker this year, and I'm not saying he was doing bad necessarily, but maybe they felt they just wanted a little bit of that insurance policy. And in a case like that, then yeah, you're wise to bring in a veteran like Crapina, especially too if for whatever reason it didn't work out in Montreal. This is a new opportunity for him, And it's kind of funny because Crapigna was a bit infamous for being a Rough Rider for a time, and now he's with the Blue Bombers. So that's a funny little wrinkle, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but hey, that's the CFL, right?
It is, and hey, good on Tyler for landing on his feet essentially. So I mean, like, what, he was unemployed for what, 48 hours?
If that,
I mean, that's not bad, folks.
No,
You're really truly when you think about it.
No. Anything that you're looking forward to? Obviously, we would hope that the team will have the scrimmage open, but as I said, stay tuned to social media. Anything that you yourself are looking forward to? Obviously, I know you're having your quote unquote writer's block, so to speak, because it's not the same for you with your blog and not being able to write your preview. But anything or is it just a matter of like everybody else? Because we can't sit there, no preseason games. We're just living life vicariously through everybody else at the moment.
Pretty much. I mean, I kind of look at it as like trying to survive on table scraps. I mean, and again, it's not a knock on the organization. I mean, like I said, I understand why things are the way they are. It just, as I said, it makes it challenging to really, truly try to wrap my head around the team and try to really get a feel for everything. Yeah. I mean, that to me is the frustrating part, is because I do pride myself on being, as connected as possible with this team, and being able to provide others with as much information as possible, at least letting people see things through my eyes. And the members of the media that are there, I know they're doing what they can too, because apparently they're kind of going through a similar thing as far as being very limited to what they can do versus what they've been able to do in the past. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm saying it's tough for everybody. Like, it's not like I'm being singled out or anything like that. I don't feel that way at all. It's just, it's a crummy situation, and I think everybody's just trying to deal with it as best as they can. And I think really truly that's all you can do. I mean, it's frustrating because I would love to be able to do more and be able to talk about it, whether it's here on the podcast or in my blog or anything like that. I don't feel like I can do it quite the way I should be able to do it. So that's kind of tough for me, but I really think it's just one of those things like, okay, it's not going to be like this forever. It can't be like this forever. It really can't. So you just have to sort of roll with it the best you can, and as I said, make it work. Even if we're only getting little snippets of information, fine. If that's how it's got to be, that's how it's got to be. I'm hoping and praying that at the 11th hour, they decide, you know what? If we do this scrimmage at Percival Molson, what the hell? Open it up. Make it clear. Like, I'm sorry, you can't go talk to the players like you normally would be able to do. Y'all are going to have to sit 6 feet apart, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. But, I mean, if they can open things up and let the fans in to take a look at things, see the kind of progress that's being made thus far. To me, I just don't see a negative to it. I don't see any sort of disadvantage or something like that. If anything, it's just going to whet that appetite for football. I mean, the Alouettes have been fastidious as far as reminding everybody, you want to be part of this team, you got to be in the stadium when the regular season gets underway. Well, to me, this is the best way to sell season tickets, or even single game tickets, as it were, is to let the fans see what's doing. Because again, there is no preseason games, so normally that would be sort of the dress rehearsal, the opportunity for the team to showcase themselves as best as possible, to try and convince you to go ahead and take that plunge and become a season ticket holder.
Exactly.
They don't have that this year.
Nope.
So there's really nothing other than, well, we hope you show up kind of thing. Like, that's not really going to stoke the fires for a lot of people.
Well, we'll see what happens. Do not forget, if you're looking to support the podcast in any way, you can head over to our merchandise store. It's at teespring.com/stores/Al's Flight Deck. Got quite a few things that are there. Us being in football mode, expect us to be back next week. We've got a couple of things lined up. And also, I'm just going to go ahead and let it slip now. Stay tuned. Opening week, even though the Alouettes do not play, stay tuned for the opening week of the CFL season. We are going to have a giveaway. So stay tuned.
Oh my gosh.
That's right. I know.
Can we do that?
I think so. Considering what we currently have, yes.
Oh man.
It's been, all this stuff's been waiting a year.
It's true. I mean, we're bursting at the seams practically. So I mean, like, like, folks, you know how excited we are about football, how happy we are. No matter, despite everything we've talked about in this episode, we're excited to get football back. We're excited to see our Alouettes take the field and ball out. And exactly. I know you guys are too. And like I said, just like even though things are a little bit weird right now, at least we still have football. At the end of the day, we're still going to get football in 2021, and we got to appreciate that at least.
Exactly. So stay tuned for us for next week. We will be, as I said, we will be taping the podcast again, but stay tuned for any other updates on social media. And hey, maybe the Alouettes will open up the stadium for the thing. Fingers crossed. We'll see. So everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on final approach.